Yes, yes. I was thinking the same thing. What's your first name?
Jennifer.
Jennifer says, well, we got rocks. That could be a happening event. Hey, let's go to the party this Friday. I heard it's really going to rock. So that word rock or rocks, you need to go to these MSU parties because they always rock. That means a happening event. The second one is on the rocks, could mean ice cubes in a glass. And you're saying, spelled precisely the same way, R-O-C-K-S, this is a homonym, when you rock in your chair, right? And that's the one I thought of before, rocking in your chairs. It's also an adjective for a musical style that began in probably 1956 or 7 with Bill Haley and the Comets or Little Richard or whoever you want to point to. This week's Beatlemania or 50 years since Beatlemania, they shoved that down our throat. It wasn't them, that's for sure. They were copying Little Richard. But what am I referring to? Another synonym, another version of rock.
Rock and roll.
Rock and roll, rock music, right? So we got one word spelled the same way. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 meanings. Do I have 5? Can I get 5? I don't know. You suggested rock. I don't know. I haven't played around with rock.
He just said you
Rock somebody's world.
Rock somebody's world. Okay, that's a little bit different from.
There's like a sexual term.
Hey, that's okay. That's okay.
That's how you might
Diamonds.
Diamonds could be referred to as rocks.
Look at the rock on her finger, right? And there's another metaphor. The diamond is the word rock is a metaphor. So rock your world, it's different. It has a meaning. It has a meaning in regional English, and it has a meaning in American slang. There's nothing wrong with that. He's 100% right. It is a little, in most uses, it's about intimacy, perhaps. But nevertheless, rock your world means I'm gonna give you pleasure or something enjoyable, right? You're gonna like it. You should see me lecture at Finding Words. I'll rock your world. And I'm not being intimate with you, right? I'm being bravado, boasting, right? I mean, but it's almost always used in the intimate sense, I guess. And when I say it in that context, it seems like I'm a total blowhard and a braggart, right? But nevertheless, it would fit. And I wouldn't be trying to tell you that I'm a Valentino or some great lover. Don John now. I got to be up on the latest lovers. Don John was the film with Scarlett Johansson, and I don't remember the male leads.
So bad.
You tell me who the male lead was. It was that bad? Good. I'm glad I didn't pay a nickel for it.
Oh, you take a look. It's horrific.
I'll take that.
Like children or like your parents.
So Don John, who was the man in the film? I know it stunk, but tell me who the man was. Do you remember? It was that forgettable, huh? He was that unhot.
Yeah. John something Levitt. Whatever.
John Levitt.
The guy from was it 30 Rock?
Third Rock from the Sun.
Yeah.
Oh, the guy from Third Rock from the Sun?
No.
What?
The teenage boy.
The teenage boy, yeah. Well, he got older. I wouldn't remember him. But anyway, that movie did not rock.
Oh, you're right.
Scarlett Johansson may rock, but the film didn't rock. What's your first name again?
Me?
Yeah. Eugene. And Eugene told me that about Scarlett. What do I know of these things?
Well, I learned what we're talking about. In doing the interview with the kids.
Yes.
I figured I learned that.
Yes, you did a little research because I asked you to do that to kind of be on patrol for language issues with the kids.
Kids see things differently.
Yeah, I'll tell you which one results almost always. I'm gonna give you a little hint, but almost always results in an auditory discrimination error, which is different. I haven't talked about that yet. I've been talking about homonyms. Oath. They mix up oath with some other thing, and I don't want to put any ideas in your head. I don't want to be suggestible, but they do mess up oath, and it's usually what we call an auditory discrimination error. And since we got so much into it, we'll look at next week's perspective in a moment. Give me another, one last homonym. It could be spelled the same or spelled differently. The key is they're pronounced the same. So when it goes in the child's ear, they hear this word, and then there's a variety of definitions that they have to pull from. And they don't always go, what kind of rock are you talking about? They simply process it the only definition that they know. And if you're here and they're there, which is, you really should assume, when you interview kids, you're going to be here and they're there. You're lucky if you approach here. But that's okay. We're trying to get as close to here as possible. But you start out here. You're talking here, they're talking there. So rocks is an example. Give me another example. I don't care if it's spelled.
Orange.
Orange. Okay, orange can be a noun, which is a little ball of a fruit that you peel and you eat. What else?
Color.
Excuse me, orange is also a color, which is interesting because the orange is orange in color, so there's kind of the confusion there isn't as pronounced. But is the orange another? Can we use orange in another way? Is that it too for orange?
What about flooded? My inbox is flooded.
My inbox is flooded. Yes, and you know what? A lot of these homonym errors arise from metaphors, because my inbox is flooded is a metaphor or analogy. It's really a metaphor taking from what? Water, right? When something floods, a building floods, there's too much water. When Hurricane Irene came, plenty of things were flooded. And when your inbox gets full of emails that it's overwhelming and there's too many of them to handle, a flooded's the perfect word. So that's good. I'm just making the observation that many of these homonyms arise from metaphors that we use in language. On the rocks is another metaphor, you know. Bartenders back in the 40s analogized the ice cubes to rocks. Flooded emails. How about another flooded? Is flooded, can we use flooded in a different context? We know it means water filling up. We know it means email box filling up in slang analogy. Is another one?
You can use it in a lot of ways. Like, I'm flooded with work. I mean, I don't know if you would typically say that, but
Right.
a lot, like.
And that's really the same. What's your first name again? Eugene? Sean. Okay, I'll get everybody down, probably by the last class. So it's not because I'm not interested.
My
It's just
engine is flooded, my car.
you flooded your engine. Yeah, that's actually almost really flooded because too much gas gets in the cylinder. But you're right, and there's a lot of ways for things to be flooded, but they all are
They're all equal up to something being filled up.
beyond capacity. Yeah, so that's not I wouldn't call all these a third manifestation of the word.
Brand.
Hip, brand,
No,
hit. Well, that's a bad one because that's a word we're interested in. So, but you're right. Hit, that's an excellent one. We know this is a hit, right? Striking someone. Give me another example of.
A song could be a hit.
A song could be a hit record, right? Hit me up. Hit me up. Verb for give me something, right? A slang. But before we get to that slang, this is a good example of the word hit, spelled precisely the same way, pronounced precisely the same way, and meaning something totally different. It's not even like flooded, analogy. It didn't arise from an analogy. It's just something else. And I'm not sure what when they tell you where a word came from, there's a fancy word called etymology. I'm not sure what the etymology is of hit record, but that's one I never really thought about. And you're correct. That is a homonym. Next one, I got an offer for another homonym. I forgot. Go ahead. What was yours?
I said bow.
Bow.
Bow and arrow.
Bow and arrow. So that's the apparatus that you put the arrow in, and the bow projects the arrow out, right? So that's a bow.
And tie a bow.
A bow tie. A man may wear, or a girl may have in her hair. A bow. Tie bow. That's pronounced the same but spelled differently, right? Tie bow. Is it B-O-W?
Oh, is your boyfriend. Like, it's an old term. Like,
That's right, but that's different. She said tie bow. Tie bow is.
I thought Bo was a guy.
Well, we'll get to that one. Let's go with Tai Bo. Tai Bo's an Asian phrase. What is that? Martial arts?
Yeah.
I don't think it's spelled B-O-W, is it?
No.
Okay. It's pronounced Bo, though, so that fits. Bo, the boyfriend, is correct. Same pronunciation, a little different spelling. B-E-A-U or something like that. Bo. And that is a bit of an antiquated...
Now B-O-O.
What, Bo? He's my beau?
Yeah, it's Bill.
Oh, boo? Oh, I see. So boo is a term of endearment between a man and a woman or partners? Boo is modern. Well, nobody really uses beau anymore, but I didn't know that there's a boo.
That's my boo.
That's my boo. What was that?
Right.
Hold on, I want to work this bow a little longer. But we'll get to right. Work the bow. Boo! Listen to me. Listen. This is an auditory discrimination error. Boo and bow are pronounced differently, right?
Yeah.
Boo's the new way to say it. Bow's the old way. We'll accept that. They're not even pronounced the same. They're not even spelled the same. They are not homonyms. We've been playing around with homonyms. There's something else. That is an auditory discrimination error. That's where it kind of sounds the same, but the kid mixes it up with the only word they know. Let's say it's a modern kid, right? They hear mama using it, they hear daddy using it, they hear boo, boo this, boo that. They know what it means. They're 7 years old and they hear boo, and you say bo. And they're like, I don't know what bo. This doesn't happen consciously. So I don't know what bo means. I think she means boo. And I know what boo means. So I'm going to answer the question with boo as what I think she's asking me about. So it'll happen in a millisecond. The kid will answer your question, and sometimes it might even fit in a weird way. You're like, all right, well, that doesn't really make sense, but, that's what the kid said. And, I really can't give an example of a forensic interview with boo and bo, but my point is words that sound nearly the same.
You were scared. Did you say boo?
Yeah, well, now you're back to homonym. Boo as a term of endearment and boo as a scary phrase on Halloween. That's a homonym now. That's two different meanings. One is a term of endearment between intimates, and the other one is a scary phrase we say at Halloween. But back to boo and bow, because they mean the same thing. One is a rather anachronistic version, an old-time version, and the other one is a more modern version. But on some level, and they don't even have to mean the same thing to the kid, they are an auditory discrimination error. Because you ask about, was Sally Johnny's beau? I wouldn't do that because then it means the same thing. But somehow the word beau comes up, they confuse it with boo. That would be an auditory discrimination error. And you'll hear more about them next week, where they mix up words. I'll give you a quick example. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say sometimes when I interview kids and you ask them, do you see your parents fighting? And they'll automatically say yes. But then when you ask them more, it could just be verbal. They're arguing.
Thank you.
So
yeah.
You have to kind of clarify, do you see them hitting each other? Do you see someone else hitting them? So I always give that.
Well expressed. Well expressed, because fighting is a general term that describes lots of different behaviors. It's really a metaphor, right? When people argue with one another, we call that fighting, but it's not fighting. We call that fighting metaphorically, right? Because we know what fight means. Fight is when you come to blows. I mean, the primary definition. Now, when someone argues, it's called fighting so much that if you go in a dictionary, it's probably the number 2 definition or among the definitions. But, the primary definition, way back when, fighting was when you struck one another. Yet we use it so broadly these days, and it is used to describe arguing. So it's a dangerous word in and of itself, and there are probably a number of different things fighting could mean besides striking one another. It is totally relevant to what we do, investigate child maltreatment, so we have to be very careful. And if there's one lesson about that word and words that are similar, it is always follow up with clarification questions, and that's what you do. Always follow up with clarification questions, and get children and witnesses for that matter, but we're focusing on children in this class, to describe actions rather than conclusions. Rather than say, were mommy and daddy fighting, or if the child says mommy and daddy fight all the time, what do they do when they fight? What does daddy do? What does mommy do? What does daddy do in response? You get them to describe what they see, the behaviors, and then we can draw our own conclusions about what's going on. Does that make sense? Yeah. But what's your first name again?
Peggy.
Peggy hits on something very important here today. We're talking about words and their potential for confusion. And Peggy hits right on one that's appropriate for what we do, fighting. It's a homonym because it can mean arguing, it could mean striking one another, and probably other things that we haven't thought about. And it is a homonym that creates the potential for misinformation in a forensic interview, and we want to minimize the potential for that. So that's good. That's good. All right, I think we got homonyms for now, and I think we just touched upon auditory discrimination errors. If I can tell you what my friend, and I forgot her name. It escapes me, but her first name was Ann. She was a linguist, and she was on the faculty of the Finding Words training. She told the following story about her family when they went to New York City once. And it really captures the essence, and it's a little bit blue. There's a homonym for you. It's a little bit blue, this joke. It's not a joke. It really happened, but it drives home the auditory discrimination error, where the child hears one word and doesn't understand it, and they appropriate that word. They use it in their mind as if it's the word they understand. So, Anne and her husband were with their a 6-year-old daughter. They're coming out of a Broadway show in New York City, and when they get to their car, he parked on the street, Dad, because he found a spot, and it was perfect. It was right near the theater. Go figure, you know? It's like finding a spot in Jersey City. It's awesome when you get that spot. So he takes that spot. They go see the show, and her husband and the 6-year-old daughter come out of the theater after the show's over. The husband was going on a business trip to California the following day, and he looks at the car, and the window is smashed open. And he is so angry and so livid, and his tickets to California, his plane tickets were stolen along with some other goods from the car. So, you know, these things happen. It's happened to me. I'm sure things like this have happened to you in your lives, and you move on. Next day, Mommy's in the kitchen. She's doing something in the kitchen. 6-year-old says, Mommy, did they find the fox? And Anne says, what are you talking about? I'm busy washing the dishes. No, Mommy, did they find the fox? The fox that took Daddy's things when they broke the car window yesterday. What are you talking about? You know, Daddy says those fox, they took my jacket and my plane tickets. And Mommy said, no, they didn't find the fox yet. And if any of you raised a child in the recent past, there's a show called Dora the Explorer and a spin-off show called Diego. Isn't there a character on that show called Swiper? Swiper? I think Swiper's a fox, too. Is he a fox or her? So maybe that was in a little girl's mind, maybe it wasn't. It doesn't have to be Swiper in her mind. It was an auditory discrimination error, right? She heard Dad curse, right? And she don't know what that word means. Sounds like fox. To her, it was fox. And is that cute or what? The little fox broke the window and he got in there, he took the things and he ran away. And you got to be careful when you're interviewing kids, right? That's an auditory discrimination error, where they don't understand the word and they use a word that they do understand that sounds nearly the same, and then they appropriate it and they make it part of their response or understanding or comprehension of what we're saying, okay? Maybe like Bo and Boo. Having said that, excuse me, let's look at learning module 3's perspectives, and they're all related. If you see what's happening here, we're in learning module 2, okay? This is about general child development, about children's sexual development, and their general development. The next learning module is about language development. Still child development, but I narrow in, I focus, I hone in, boom, right on language, because that's what we use to talk to kids, words. And that is the most perilous aspect of what we do. So let's take a look at the perspective, since we were messing around with words, which I always find fun. Let's take a look at... No, it's not, but he looks like him a little bit. Yeah. This is actually the family circus, I think it was called. But and I forget what the little boys and girls' names are. But in the first image, we'll call the little boy Billy, because the guy who wrote the comic was Bill Kane. You could see his name written on the right. Jeff and Bill Kane. I guess his son took over when he passed away or whatever. They might be made from the same thing, but cotton candy tastes better than my shirt. Okay? So what kind of error we got there? Okay, so cotton can be a fiber, right? Or cotton could be the adjective that describes a particular kind of sweet candy that you get at a carnival, right? So that would be a homonym error. It's spelled the same, pronounced the same, but means different things, right? And he's hitting on it. Next one, Peg, would you read the next one, the middle one, out loud for us, please?
Grandma, this chili you make isn't chili at all.
All right. Homonym error or auditory discrimination error? Anyway, homonym, are they spelled exactly the same?
No.
Don't have to be, though. Are they pronounced exactly the same?
Yes.
Homonym errors, okay? Which has got a little bit of auditory discrimination in it, if you think about it, but it's a homonym error. Mine's exactly like yours. It's an ice cream clone. Homonym error or auditory discrimination error? Great work. This is awesome, man. All of you almost said that in unison, and that's hard to get. A lot of people struggle with auditory discrimination error. That one ain't even close. Clone, cone, two different words, sound different. They sound different. And that's the hallmark of an auditory discrimination error. They sound different when you look at them in the bright light of the room. Not to the kid, though. To the kid, they sound almost exactly the same, right? But when we analyze the words, you got two choices. One, they spelled the same or spelled differently and sound exactly the same when pronounced correctly. Or words that are spelled the same and pronounced the same. I mean, words that are pronounced similarly and spelled differently, they're auditory discrimination errors. So chili is there's the two spellings right in the cartoon. I mean, we're on clone now. Clone. The word clone and cone are different. They sound the same in a way, and you can see how a kid might grab that and appropriate it. Watch my step, but mommy, I'm sitting down. Now, I don't know that this is a homonym error. Maybe I think everything, if you boil it down, you're going to find out that it's a language error of some sort. Watch my step, mommy said to him. I guess he was being not following the rules. But mommy, I'm sitting down. What's the problem here? Where does the child make the error? Step. Okay, so that can be confusing, but there's even a better action word there. Watch. So watch and step. Step is a problem. Why?
It's going to mean the two things spelled the same.
Spelled the same. Step can be what? A step on the staircase, right? And what is mom? A step in the next step, meaning the next course of action, what you do next, right? So it really is. I guess if you boil it down, it really is a homonym error. But I'm making this up. Not that it's wrong, but there's no literature on this. I would call this a complex homonym error, right? Because there are multiple pieces to this kid's misunderstanding. Tell me what the other piece of his misunderstanding is besides the word step. Yeah, what about watch? I mean, well, we know watch can be, most of you don't have watches anymore, but a watch could be something older folks wear on their arm, their wrist. But what else about watch?
Could he ever understand that as wash? As in washing?
That would be an auditory discrimination error. Thank you for saying that. That would be an auditory discrimination error. I don't think that's happening because he says, I'm sitting down. Right. So he's like, I'm sitting. How can I be on a step? He looks like he's thinking of steps and walking around. And a watch step, if you put a thought bubble upon him, he would probably be in front of a staircase staring at it, right? Yeah. If you put a thought bubble on him. At least that's my interpretation. Everyone has something differently. But we know that watch could mean to observe, right? To watch, to look at and observe. Okay. And what else could it be? In this context, what did mommy mean when she says, watch your step, mister?
Like correcting his behavior?
Yeah, but what does the word watch mean?
Check yourself.
Like pay attention.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a little bit different than watch and observe. It's like pay attention.
Maybe the glass? The glass, or that he doesn't spill anything?
Oh, well, she could. You're digging a little deep here.
Yeah.
That's okay. You can write a story from this, and that would be very talented if you could do that. But yeah, I'm not so sure what they're referring to. But maybe she's like, watch your step, because last time he knocked the milk over. Maybe he cussed. Maybe he did something bad. But as far as the first three words, the word step can be misleading, and the word watch is a nuanced word, right? Watch could be like, in his world, he watches TV. You watch something, you look at it purposefully, right? But when we say watch your step, we're kind of like pay attention to. It's close, but we're not using our eyeballs and observing something. We're being mindful of or paying attention to. Anyway, all of that language is jam-packed into those three words, and they go in a little kid's head, and he's got to process it. That's why the one thing that you can do that we always don't do well enough, all the interviewers, even the very practiced ones that I work with throughout the state of New Jersey, and I always admired the ones from Minnesota who, I went to some trainings with that. They got this down pat at the corner house. You need to wait, listen. Let the child process what you said. Think about it. And we all know that, but it's hard to execute. I've watched thousands of interviews. It's just hard to execute because we want to help them along. So what typically interviewers do is say, did mommy tell you to watch your step? Right? And the kid, we look at them and they look like they're struggling a little bit. And we then say to the child, well, what I mean is A, B, C, or D. Did mommy tell you be careful that you don't knock the milk over again, or watch your manners at the table, or something else? That would be a good multiple choice question, but I find that interviewers don't let the child have enough time to process it, and we jump in to help them understand by asking a follow-up question. And I'm suggesting to you, one of the attributes and traits of a good forensic interviewer is to have patience and to wait and listen and let the child process the information. Because we just teased out 3 words in that comic frame, right? And we're able to go in like 7 different directions. Now remember, this kid is 5, 6 years old. He's a growing child with a limited universe of words and meanings in his brain, and a disincentive to stop the adult and correct them. Because he's 5 and 6. We don't challenge adults. So we're going to, and we want to do well. We want to answer the question so we can act like we know it. And sometimes they do know it. The thing for you to do is wait, let the child process it, and then help them out by asking a follow-up question if you have to. Last one. Why's it never tomorrow, mommy? Every time I wake up, it's today again. Okay? What about that one? What's going on there?
His mother probably said, have a good night, see you tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
He's not understanding because when tomorrow comes, she's saying it's today.
Yeah, and you know what? This is not really a language error here, but it's something that comes up in our field all the time.
The
Days, times, chronology, sequence, right? Weeks versus month, duration. Duration means how long have we been somewhere, or how long did something happen. And if you think about it, you got this 5 or 6 year old kid here. A basic word, tomorrow, he's having a problem with, and a tough time understanding how the days turn into new days. And when you get to the new day, tomorrow's never here, right?
Oh, yesterday.
Yeah. My son used to say the next day. He never grasped tomorrow when he was 4 or 5, but he would be like, are we going to grandma's the next day? And I knew that to mean tomorrow, and that made sense. Next. He wrapped his arms around next. He appreciated and understood next, but tomorrow was still a little wishy-washy in his head. So let's take a look at the other perspective. I have to step out for a minute and make a telephone call.